keynotes coming up today. I even talked to Jimmy about maybe coming back up for just a minute. He may have a surprise or two in his guitar over here. Couple things before we get started. Downloading the presentations. If you look in your program book, on every speaker page up at the top is how to download the presentations. And it's also the password for the Wi-Fi. So we try to keep that for you real handy. CXO today, where's Pat? She's back there. Hi, Pat. It's downstairs and it starts at 9:45, so you have a little bit of a shorter break than everybody else. But that's the price you pay for getting to be with Pat all day, because that's going to be just an incredible event down there today. iMugs is at 4:45 in this room. And I just want to say thank you to all the exhibitors, the sponsors, and everybody that made last night such a huge success. And no, we're not raffling off the car. I've been asked that over and over. I was supposed to bring a different car, which didn't happen. So we rented a car from Hertz. And all those stickers on there, I need everybody just to say a little prayer that they all come off before I have to take the rental car back. Otherwise, we may have to raffle it off. Tonight, we're going to have the vendor raffle in the exhibit hall. And the passport raffle is tomorrow at closing. So tonight is the vendors, tomorrow's the passport. And both, I've already seen some of the prizes and some of the things that they're raffling off that's not a car. And I got to tell you, there's some great things happening tonight. And tomorrow, my staff has put together some great items for closing. May or not be in racing themes, I don't know. They usually don't let me know until later because I'll spill the beans to somebody and it'll go around. You know, like yesterday, somebody started with the shirt I had on was a custom shirt. No, it wasn't. I just kind of bought that and it just kind of worked out perfectly to match everything. So sometimes that works out. My staff, can you guys stand up again today? Because you guys are doing incredible. Look at these guys. The energy that they hold every day of conference and every day leading up to conference is, I'm just amazed constantly. Today's chair drop is from NCU. Do we have anybody here from NCU? They may not be down yet. Okay, a couple of years ago, we announced our master's program. Last year, we announced the master's, and we went over to NCU because they also offer a bachelor's program. How many in here have multiple certifications from IAITAM? Wonderful. You guys are all on your way to a bachelor's and a master's. So you need to contact NCU. They take our courses and apply them to credit for the bachelor's and the master's, and the paper on the table will explain to you how. And some of your work experience and some some life experience, things like that, they can also help with your path to a master's. So take a look at that, take the paper with you. If you have any questions, they're down in the exhibit hall as well. So I asked Jimmy, I know he has a little secret out there that we're not going to tell anybody, that he may or may not be working on his own album. And I've heard a couple of the original pieces that I got to tell you, they're going to be number ones. I have no doubt. I even made a bet with you for charity that the one is going to be number one. And Patrick's sitting right here, and I'm looking at you right now. So if that song goes number one, I'll go with your charity. You got it. Just because you were Goose last year up here, I mean, how could I not? So now the pressure's on you to make it number one. So you want to start in this room? Can we get you up here a little bit? Who wants to hear Jimmy this morning? What was it? Well, yeah, that's true too.
Number one song, charity. Love it.
Huh? Got backup here? Not me.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Did everybody sleep well? Yes, kind of? Okay, good. All right. Here's the deal. Okay, here's the deal. Barb wanted me to sing a song. I am doing a record, and this is her favorite song. Now, Barb, I don't know, you love it, and I will say that Vince Gill sung backup on this song this week. Who remembers Vince Gill? Yeah? Isn't that amazing? So, very honored that he was on it. Barb, if you'll come up here just for a second, I'm going to need your help. You're not Vince Gill, but here's the deal. If you'll sit right there on the stage. I said, Barb, let me sing another song. Let me sing a couple that I know really well. And she said, no, sing this one. So I don't know it amazingly, so she's going to help me, aren't you, Barb? Now, the song we wrote yesterday was, is it on? Is the guitar on? The song we wrote yesterday was We're All the Same. So it was that connection of how we all are the same. We all feel the same things. We all experience anxieties and worries and fears, and we have kids, and we make mistakes, and we don't get it right all the time. I wanted to have a song like that on this project. This is called Same Water, Different Boat. Okay? And then I'm going to get off the stage. I got to tell you, John O'Leary is coming up. This is an amazing speaker. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. So I'm going to do this for y'all and for Barb, and then I'll be gone. There we go. Yeah, we all bleed and we all cry, some out loud, some inside. We all get knocked down sometimes, ain't that the truth? Yeah, we all want what we don't have. We all love, we all look back. Tell me, friend, don't that sound like me and you? Yeah, we're all just riding on this rock together. We're all just kind of learning as we go, trying to find a little break in stormy weather. Just out here trying to keep this thing afloat. Same water, different boat. Same water, different boat. Yeah, we all got cards that we don't show. We all got dreams that run out of road. Ain't got a clue what tomorrow holds, but here we go. Yeah, we're all just riding on this rock together. We're all just kind of learning as we go, trying to find a little break in stormy weather. Just out here trying to keep this thing afloat. Same water, different boat. Same water, different boat. Same laugh, different joke. Same town, different folks. Same high, different smoke. Same water, different boat. Yeah, we're all just riding on this rock together. We're all just kind of learning as we go, Just out here trying to keep this thing afloat. Same water, different bowl. Same water, different bowl. Same water, different bowl. Same water, different bowl. Can y'all relate? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, and without further ado, I have the special honor and privilege of bringing on our next speaker. You're going to love him. John O'Leary, come on up here. Yeah.
Come on, dude. Thank you. Well, good morning. Good morning. Same water, different boat. I think that song plays true in every family, every community, every state, every country, every organization, every team, and certainly every leader within this room. Same water, different boat, and our job as leaders in life is to hop into the boat together and row together and weather the waves together, and that's not always easy. 32 years ago, my friends, leaders, family, I found myself in a very different ballroom with a very different singer as an opening act. I was a 9-year-old little guy in St. Louis, Missouri, in a burn center. And it was a room I knew really well because I'd been there for the previous 5 months after getting burned. So when you spend 5 months as a kid in a burn center, man, you're ready to go home. You're ready to get out. I heard my dad's voice down the hall. He was speaking to a nurse, and the question he asked was, is he ready? Is he ready? What Dad wanted to know is my 9-year-old boy named John, after being burned on 100% of his body and given no chance of surviving, is he ready to go home? Is he ready to get into this new boat? And I didn't know what that nurse was going to say back, so I remember being a little fella in a wheelchair on a morphine drip. Morphine is like true serum. Okay, it's great stuff. Highly recommend this. And so I remember yelling out of the doorway, yes, he's ready. Come get him, Dad. And I hear my father's heavy footsteps come closer and closer and closer. The old man opens up the doorway, and he walks in, and in front of my dad was a red wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow was full, IAITAM leaders, of champagne and lifesavers. They were not for me. I see several of you judging already like, things must really be different in Missouri. Champagne and morphine, and he's only 9. No, it's not for me. So if it's not for me, but he's wheeling it in, my friends, who's it for? I'm sorry, say it again? Doctors, nurses, staff, custodians, the folks who prep the food, the team, in other words. They're in the same boat. So we recognize their heroism. He set the champagne down over here, comes over to me, puts his hands on my legs, looks me in the eyes, and says to me, John, little man, you did it. You did it. And as a little fella, I look up at my dad and I said, Dad, yes, I did. But IAITAM, friends, partners, members, family. I look back at that conversation with complete clarity on how little I did. Your keynote speaker this morning has not flown in from St. Louis, Missouri to spend an hour and 12 minutes bragging on himself. If that's why you got up early, to come down here and to be inspired by how terrific John O'Leary is, you will leave here in an hour and 11 minutes incredibly disappointed. But IAITAM friends, if you have come down instead a little bit tired and maybe more things from last night, wiped out, beat down, broken down, weathering the waves in your life, to be reminded again that your best days are in front of you, that it is not easy, but it is possible, that you're in the right room, you're with the right family. That's why I'm here today, and I hope it's why you're here as well. So I'm thrilled to spend a little bit of time with you this morning talking about the weather that you are hanging on through, the boat that you are seated in, and the opportunities that remain in front of you. But it's not always easy. How many of you, by a show of hands, have ever had a bad day? Almost half. Okay. So the other half, good for you. I'm just going to speak to those who are being honest today for a moment. When you struggle, not if, at work, with technology, with leadership, with selling things up and down, with doing more and more and more with less and less and less. This should sound familiar to all 1,000 of us. When you struggle, and that's before you get home. When you struggle and when you choose to be a victim to the struggle, what is the victim's favorite question to ask? I heard it. We're going with it. My friends, I'm going to put this up on the screen. Next slide, please. The very first question that we will ask if we allow the day to get the better of us is, why me? You got it right. Why me? And when we ask this question, what it lends itself toward is us looking down, crossing our arms, and pouting out the second question as we step into the day, which is, who cares? Next slide, please. Who cares? Who cares? It's the great question of indifference. And indifference in our roles of leadership, indifference in the work that we do, indifference in our relationships at home, and in the countries where we live. Indifference leads to death. It's a slow fade, but it's going to take us there. So why me? Who cares? Two questions we will not ask today, because if we did, we would ask the third and the final question, which is, what more can I do? I'm only one, man. It's a huge problem. It's a big organization. There's too much headwind. I'm undersupplied. I don't have enough equipment, enough people, enough talent. What more can I do? But today, in this gorgeous ballroom surrounded by about 1,000 family members, we're going to be asking three completely different questions. These questions are worth asking today. Next slide, please. They're worth asking tomorrow. And I think they're worth asking each day going forward. Question number one, as the sun rises. How many of you, by a show of hands, like watching the sun rise? Man, I think it's one of the grandest gifts of our days, and we frequently miss it or curse it. The whole world is dark. I don't care where you're from. The whole world, because it's one world, one rock, as Jimmy just said, one rock, the whole thing is dark. And then to the east, there's this little glimmer of red hope. It gets bigger and brighter and more orange and then more yellow, and then it fills the entire world with light. And in awe, my friends, we ask the question, whoa, why me? Eyes to see, ears that hear, hearts that beat free, opportunities to connect, to innovate, to create, to solve for problems that others don't even know are going on. Why me? Why me? Blessed, highly favored. Take an inventory today of what I have. What a great way to start our day, which allows us to get out of bed, to dance to the Marriott shower. Once we figure out which way that silver thing turns, we turn on that shower. When I turned it on, I came out of that shower. I came out wetter with my clothes on after turning that thing on than I did after I actually got out the second time. But once you figure out which way it comes, water cascades into your face on the 8th floor, and it's hot. And it's good. And with our eyes and heart a little bit more open now, we don't just stop with gratitude. Now we move toward mission. And we ask the second question, which is, class, who cares? It's hard. Sometimes I feel undervalued. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing more and more and more with less and less and less, and it's uphill to and back from work. You know what? Who cares? The work we do is worthy. It matters. It's critical. So this is a question around mission and living it day after day after day, which equips us to boldly step through that day, ultimately finishing strong by asking the third and the final question. Anybody want to guess, next slide please, what the third question is? Next picture. Wait for it. Anybody want to guess what the third question is? One lady in row 19 in the back. I'm coming down. I know y'all love slides and PowerPoint and everything else, but I'm going to unplug from PowerPoint for a moment. When I speak not at an IAITAM conference in front of the entire family, but when I speak to kids, and I don't mean like millennials. No, I'm talking like 6-year-olds, like real kids. And I ask real kids a real question. How many hands in the classroom in any country will pop up? I'm sorry, how many? Every hand will rise. And not only will the little hands pop up, they'll do two other things. They will wave those hands like this, and they'll grunt. Mr. John, When was the last time you wanted anything that bad? Seriously, I'm not joking. When was the last time you wanted anything that bad? For them, it's just second nature. But by the time I call on the child, he or she seldom even remembers the question, okay? So I'm a St. Louis, Missouri guy. It's right in the middle part of the United States. For those of you who are not from the U.S., we welcome you here. You are welcomed here, okay? We're glad you're here. I'm in the middle part of the country. I'm fist bumping kids from a very impoverished part of our neighborhood as they go back to school. One of the little men fist bumps me. He pulls back his right hand, looks at mine. It's okay to look. Looks at my left hand, looks into my face and says, "Whoa, mister, what happened to your hands?" This is after I spoke to his class for an hour. Are you following? Like, he probably should have known. You may not have a clue what happened to my hands because I haven't told you the story yet. I just spent an hour with this kid in his class. So I take my little slice of humble pie, kneel down, and I say to him, "Well, little brother, when I was 9 years old, I was in a house fire, but I'm doing good today." And he says back to me, "Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We had a speaker this morning." And when he was 9 years old, he was in a fire too, mister. And then he goes, "You two should meet." Our children, parents and aunties and uncles, may occasionally get the answers wrong. But what I will say for them unequivocally, they're participating. They are participating. And a large aspect of whether in any storm you are in, any boat you are in, any waters you may find yourself in today, is the gift of actually raising your hand and participating in the solution. Any fool can point out the waves coming towards you. More tonight at 10 o'clock on the evening news. Any fool can do it. But we are called in this room not only to see the waves, but to actively row toward it. When I speak to that same child and to that same class 10 years downstream, now they're seniors in high school, they're 17, they're future employees of yours. And I ask a simple question, how many hands will rise? I'm sorry, how many? None. This is usually what that room of kids will look like. And this is what they're thinking. And when the thought bubble finally bursts, I believe their next thought is this. I bet he survives the fire. You know what, little man? I bet he survives the fire too. I don't know at what age cynicism creeps into our minds, but I will tell you right now it creeps in. And it is alive and well among us, within us, certainly in this room. That's when I'm with seniors in high school. When I'm at IAITAM at 8:15 in the morning in beautiful San Diego, and I ask a question of 1,000 leaders, and I put the answer on the screen in 48 font. How many hands rise? 0. And after I ask again, and then a fourth time, one lady way back there in the back says, what more can I do? My ask on behalf of your organizations and your family and your community and your countries, plural, because it's one rock, Jimmy, one rock, is that you show up and you actively participate, not only this morning. I'm on a flight out today at like 11:30, but that you actively participate in your life. You will get way more out of your conference experience, and more than that, you're going to get way more out of your life. So leaders, and that is you, leaders, what is the very first question that we'll be talking about today? It's on the very top of that slide. Yell it out, please. One more time, please. Let's see if you're right. Next slide, please. Go back one, if you don't mind. You're not supposed to see that one. Why me? Now we're going to take inventory of the reasons in life we had to be grateful. Gratitude has been to lead to not only creativity and connectivity, but also longevity. And the cool thing about gratitude is it's a muscle you get to choose to stretch or not. You get to choose to stretch it or not. So today, we will choose to stretch it. Looking back at your own lives, how many of you have ever done anything that you now realize was a big mistake? Okay, let me be more specific. Looking back at last night, okay? Because I saw some of you come crawling down this morning looking for the coffee machine. When I was a kid, I grew up, 4 hours by plane from where we are. I saw little boys in my neighborhood playing with fire and gasoline. What these little guys would do is they would sprinkle gasoline on a sidewalk, they would strike a match, stand back 2 feet for safety. Very risk averse, you would love them. Throw the match on top, and the liquid would dance to life. And when you're 9 and you're a boy, this is awesome. You're watching liquid come to life, becomes fire. And these are guys you look up to. They're practically men. Okay? They're 11. And you think if these men can do that and get away with it, what's the next sentence? So can I. Me too. Well, why does this matter to us? Here's why it matters. Because who you hang out with the most, you are going to become. The voices you listen to most frequently, you are going to believe. If you don't like the way things are trending, then hang out with a new group and do something different. Hop into a different boat and start rowing. I believe that's what we're doing out here in San Diego together. You recognize you are no longer alone. And not only is the boat not empty, it's full of about 1,000 friends who are rowing with you. That is power. So the first piece is to recognize that you're not alone. But the second thing is this. People are watching you. Like your kids, your nephews, your coworkers, even your executives that you report into. Like, people are watching. Give them an example in a marketplace that seldom does of something that is worthy, something that is proactive, something that is life-giving. That weekend, my father's at work. I'm watching the wrong leaders, and it's going to take me off the edge. I come into the garage, my mother's out, bend over a can of gasoline, try to pour a little bit of gasoline on top. Before the liquid came out, this is key, leaders. Before the liquid came out, what comes out first? Vapor. Next slide, please. Vapor. Fumes. The invisible stuff. In life, with our assets, with our technology, with our relationships, with our health, with our freedoms, it's very seldom what we see coming that burns. Almost never will we get burned, leaders, by liquid. It's not what everybody's screaming about that's going to bring you to your knees. It's what no one has the audacity or the wisdom yet to see. How beautiful then to come together among friends and talk about fumes and how we in this room can choose to harness them and use them for good. That day, those fumes, I never saw them coming. How could you? Came out of that can, created a huge explosion. That's the real picture. Next slide, please. Split the can in two and launched me 20 feet against the far side of the garage. When we were little, we were taught and trained what to do in this situation. What are we supposed to do? One more time, class. Stop, drop, and roll. What do you actually do when you're on fire, class? Why are those not the same answer, class? Here's why. Don't answer it. We train up here. Take notes. You need it for the next meeting, the next project, next team building exercise. Up here. But you lead, you serve. I would suggest to you, you sell and you buy from a much more sacred source. We need this. So take notes while you're in San Diego. But this without this is hollow and replaceable. No offense. Our job as leaders is to make sure the two come together as one, undivided. That day for me, they were separate, and separate ain't equal, okay? It's not working. Separate's not equal. I panicked and I ran for my life. Next picture, please. One moment, I'm happy, healthy. I'm going to zoom in for the folks in the far back. Next picture. It's okay to nod your head, guys. Extremely good looking. Okay. I mean, bangs like that. That is either a laser level, or what else might it be? A bowl, Patrick. And that little white thing you see below his chin, what's that called? It's not a turtleneck. It's a freaking dickie. Thank you, ma'am. Some of you don't even know what a freaking dickie is. Okay. Don't Google it right now, okay? If you like where you work, don't be Googling freaking dickie at the conference, man. It is going to take you sideways quick. A freaking dickie is the top part of the turtleneck that your mama makes you wear. And you hate her because you don't like that thing, man, but you love your life. Have you ladies and gentlemen and friends and colleagues and leaders all ever noticed that when your life is going pretty good, you seldom recognize it as such? I can't speak for every country in the room and certainly not every organization in the room, but last year in the United States, for instance, the stock market was at a historic high. Historic. Unemployment was at a historic low. And 94% of news stories were negative. If that's the world you want to live in, more at 10. But I would encourage you to turn it off and see life for the storms and the opportunities through your own lens. You'll get a clearer perspective of what's going on and what you can do to make the bad good. That day for me, my life was so good, I think I missed it. And a little part of the message, I think, for you today is don't miss your day today. It's late May in sunny San Diego. The sun is above those clouds, trust me. And the best of our journey remains in front of us. That doesn't make it easy. But man, don't miss the gift of this moment, because I think frequently we do. And then it changes on us, because the change is always blowing upon us. The next picture will be hard to look at. You may want to shut your eyes or follow me way over here. But I found myself, next picture, on my back with burns on 100% of my body. 87% were third degree. Next picture, please. I'm laying there. I am dying. I'm 9 years old. I'm looking up at the bright light, and the only thought I had that morning, I still remember it distinctly, was, oh my gosh. My dad is what? One more time, class. Your daddy's going to kill you, boy. How many of you, by a show of hands, had a disciplinarian growing up? About 20%. And the other 80%, you just did it all by yourselves? Well, that's right, brother. Welcome to IAITAM. I'm a self-starter, bootstrapper. As a child, I changed my own Pampers, I'll have you know. Get out of my way. I need no one. What a lie. It is a grand, grand, grand lie. And you've come to San Diego to be reminded to wake up from it. We need one another. We do better in community, togetherness. One of the great leaders in my life was my father. Great guy, but kind of type A, a little bit driven. Do you know anybody like that? Just look to the person to your left and right and you're seeing that person. And then just recognize they're looking at you. I just blew up my daddy's house. Man, Dad's gonna kill you, boy. I hear his voice down the hall. Next picture, please. And what he says to some nurse in the hallway is, "Where is my boy, John?" Where is my boy, John? And I remember hearing the voice of that line and thinking, oh my gosh. The old man has come to finish me off. And this nurse does me no favor. She brings him back into the room. She should have called security. And this old guy stumbles in. And he was old. He was 41. Is 41 old, yes or no? I'm sorry, yes or no, class? When you were 9 years old, was it old? Yes. What changed? Everything. You, wisdom, experience, perspective. Don't give that up to somebody else. Own it. Don't give it up to somebody else in your organization, someone that you're rooming with, someone that you live with, a partner, a spouse, a child, an aging parent, whatever. Own yours. Own it. Own your place in the boat. You're not alone. One of the captains of my boat was my dad. He came in old and mad. He walks over to me, points down, and then he says very firmly, "John, look at me when I'm talking to you." I don't know about your family of origin, but that's the kiss of death in ours. So I look up at my old, mean father, and he responds, "I have never been so proud of anyone in my entire life. And my little buddy today, this morning, man, I'm just proud to be your dad." And then my mean father says, "I love you. I love you. I love you." And as a child, I crossed my arms, shut my eyes, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, nobody told my dad what happened. I mean, the man does not know. And then my next thought is, whew, I wonder if I can get away with this. You ever been there? Oh, you bunch of liars. I wonder if I can get away with this. I don't think my dad did not know, but I know he changed in front of me. He came in with this whole bunch of thoughts and emotions, probably a little bit of anger and fear, pulls back this curtain, sees any parent's worst nightmare. He's got 6 kids, but that's his favorite one. And my father changed. As we weather the waves in our boats in life, and you will weather them, there are ultimately 2 things that allow you to navigate through those waves. There are 2 great motivating forces organizationally, individually, in your teams, in your relationships, in your spiritual journey, in your health, in your finances. They determine what you choose to say and do, show up, everything else. They're like the true north. 2 great motivating forces. Number 1, fear. Fear is a great motivator. It gets you out of bed early. It may get you into a temple or a church. It may get you into a gym. It may get you to have a difficult conversation with a colleague at work. But it doesn't ultimately engage once you are in that space. So fear is a great way to start the movement forward, but it is no place to live long term. The other great motivating force in our works, in our organizations, in our relationships, in our lives, the one my dad leveraged and has continued to leverage, is love, which is not as soft as some of you right now are thinking that it is. We'll talk about that here in a moment. It is actually extraordinarily bold, It ignites creativity and innovation and togetherness. It allows us and frees us to have incredibly painful and difficult conversations, to do very difficult things that we thought were impossible before. And ultimately, it wins. My dad came in with fear. He shifted into love. He changed, and the little boy caught. This is the way leadership has always worked. Every morning of our lives, when we arise in San Diego and we pull back that curtain, we look to the east and we realize, damn, it's cloudy. Next slide. We all ask the same question. Why me? But today, in sunny San Diego, surrounded by about 1,000 dear friends who are in the boat rowing with us, we ask this question not as victims to the day, yesterday or tomorrow, but as victors, equipped and capable and free, bright enough and connected enough to rise above, to stay afloat, and to navigate these waves, ultimately to ensure our best days are in front of us, not behind us. So, my friends, in a moment, I'm going to pause, and it's going to become a little bit more interactive, because I don't want to just have you hear these questions. I want you to internalize them and make them yours. So I'd like you to ask the question, why me? Next slide, please. And answer it with the statement, I am grateful for. As you sit back with eggs and biscuits and coffee and orange juice and fruit and yummies in your belly, with that sea breeze blowing outside and a group of friends and family around you, what are you grateful for today? Too frequently, we race into the day. We keep our eyes staring down at a phone or a laptop. And I beg you today, periodically, and if it works for you today, then keep it going tomorrow, to occasionally look up, to imagine again, to free yourself to be like a child. What are you grateful for? What things? What opportunities? What talents? What challenges? I find I've grown the most through my storms. When the water is rising all around my boat, that is actually when I find myself looking back on it, recognizing, man, I got a lot to be grateful for. What are you grateful for? And then next slide, please. One person. I want you today to identify one person. Maybe she's in the room. Maybe he's at home. Maybe they're in heaven. Maybe they're older than you by 30 years. Maybe they're younger than you, and they call you mom or dad. But who's that one person that inspires you to become the best version of yourself? You'll need an answer, okay? Because like in 3 minutes, you'll be sharing that. So I'll go first. Next slide. Mine's not my dad. He's awesome. But it's actually his partner. So if it's not my dad and she's pictured up there, class, who do you think it might be? This is the layup question. You can do this. One more time. Your mama, man. My mother was awesome. She is the most loving leader I've ever met, which means she demands progression toward perfection, which means she demands creativity and innovation, which means she refuses to allow people, including herself, to make excuses. This is not easy. It's actually hard business. And we are called to step into our business of daily life with love. My mother certainly did. I came home from the hospital. Next picture, please. On a Saturday, I looked a little bit like this little fella. The following day, the doorbell rings. My mother goes to the door. She brings someone into her house, and immediately I recognize the woman's voice. It's Mrs. Bartello. I hated Mrs. Bartello. Do you know her? Some of you are like, me too, man. Let's get that woman. Mrs. Bartello is our piano teacher. As a little fella growing up in the Midwest, man, I don't like piano. I like baseball. That's what I want to play. I knew she wasn't there for me because look at my hands. But I could not figure out as a little one, why is she here? Why is this woman here? It made no sense. My mother comes into the kitchen. I look up at her and I say, Mama, why is she here? And I want you leaders to remember well what my mother responds with. You may need this sentence when you return back to work or back to your homes, back to your countries. Here's what she says very clearly. You may want to write it down. a word. Talk is cheap. From a motivational speaker, I'm telling you right now, talk is cheap. When what is required during days like this are bold, humble action. My mother very lovingly, which means very courageously, bent down. She unhooked the brakes on my wheelchair. Barb, we could play on that one all day. I'm pretty convinced we all got brakes on. My mother freed me of some of my limiting beliefs, some of my brakes, rolls me away from the pity party, takes me down a hallway. I look up at her and I say, Mama, where are you taking me? And she doesn't say a word. She just moves. And momentum is a very hard thing to stop. She takes me all the way into a living room. There's an old beat-up piano. There's a little boy named John O'Leary who's about to take piano class. I hate my mom. And I believe the only time I hated her more than that Tuesday was the following Tuesday when Mrs. Bartello came back. And then the following, and then the following, and then the following for 5, what's the next word? Years. One more time, class. Years. If you don't participate, you can't complain. This is true not only in conference, but in life. What's the next word? 5 years of piano class. If you ever come visit me, you'll find a guy who lives in St. Louis independently. You'll find a guy who is married, owns a home, owns a piano, and has 4 little kids who hate their dad. There's a lot of reasons for that one. I'll let you, they can explain it to you sometime. But primarily on top of that list is the fact that on Tuesdays at 3:30, the doorbell rings. And a woman named Miss Christine swings by for piano class. Next slide, please. What I want to do is put this picture back on the screen. Have you think about that one person. And while you reflect on it, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but up here, there's a little piano. And although I have a feeling Jimmy could probably rock this thing out a little better than I can, what I'd like to do for you right now is to play a song for you on the piano. We're going to do this twice, once now and once at the very end. The first song is going to be maybe a little bit more slow, and I'll let you all vote which one it is. You get to choose whether you hear my father's favorite song or my mother's favorite song, and I'm not going to tell you which one's which. But you need to vote. Who wants to hear my dad's favorite song? Make some noise. All right. Who wants to hear my mother's favorite song? Okay. All right. So I think we're going to hear my mother's favorite song, and it is actually the very first one I learned how to play after I came home. And in coming home, I was in a wheelchair on a morphine drip with no fingers. And my left arm was out at my side like this. In an airplane splint, they call it. My right arm was in a boxer's glove. So that's where the piano class began. And this was the very first song I learned how to play. So I think you picked appropriately. Before I sit down and play, 2 things. Number 1, 2 things. Lower your expectations for the piano. If you're in the back of the room right now with your arms crossed thinking, dude, this better be good. You are in the wrong room, and you are setting yourself up for disappointment. The dude's got no fingers, man. We'll bring Jimmy back up to rock it later on, but right now, lower expectations. And then secondly, class, elevate. Elevate expectations of what you believe is possible through your work, through your leadership, through your life. So lower it for me, elevate it for you. Here we go. We have all been surrounded by giants. I want you to think about who one of yours might have been. And I'm going to sit back, if this little guy is working, and I'm going to play my mother's favorite song. When I first started playing, I only had access to one hand. And my hand was wrapped in a boxer's glove. Not bad. I thought it was good. And then they did a surgery which allowed me to remove the bandages and then press one key at a time. And then, my friends, they did a surgery which allowed me to have access to my left hand. pretty amazing what we can do when we're not playing all by ourselves. So here we go. I'm going to play this song for you. You got about 30 seconds right now to think through who your teacher is. Who's that rabbi, that pastor, that coach, that first mentor, that son, that daughter, that spouse, granny, uncle, neighbor? So, thank you. All righty. So, for Mrs. Bartello, I bow. Why would they make a 9-year-old boy with no fingers play the piano? What was it? Was it this? You know what? In late May 2019 in San Diego, I bet you some great lady's going to bring him on out there and he's going to play the piano in front of about 1,000 new friends. What leadership, if you've ignored me to this point, fine. Take a sip of coffee and please hear. What great leadership is really all about, though, is not that, it's this. It's allowing people who do not yet see right around the corner what might be there waiting for them, for better and for worse. It is inspiring those that we serve and those that we are told to lead to see just beyond the horizon what they do not yet see for themselves. It's coming this way, that storm is. And together we can hop in the boat, we can row, we can weather, and we can ensure our best days are in front of us. That's what great leadership is about. It had nothing at all to do with a piano. It was about possibility. What my mother was saying to me, and I think what you guys and you ladies say to those you serve, are these words. Baby, they may have taken your fingers. They have not taken your life. Come on. Get in the boat. Get in. I'll row with you. What a gift. So I'm curious, who's the one that gave you that gift? Who's your mentor? Who's your friend? Who's that leader, that teacher? I'm going to be quiet for a moment. The question's on the screen. At your tables, whether it's a table of 8 or 3 or 2 or 1, that 1 doesn't work, but anywhere else, at your tables, I'd like you to turn away from me and turn away from the storm for a moment. All the struggles you brought into the room today. Turn away from it. Grab a friend, share the love, and answer the question on the screen. And I recognize, man, this is awkward. The last drink I had was 1:30 at the bar last night. This is awkward for me right now. So I'm going to help you all take a big old swig of your coffee, have another drink. Here we go. Repeat after me. Hi. This is awkward for me too. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Look at me when I'm talking to you. I love you. There's nothing you can do about that. Nothing. And one person who inspires me to become the best version of myself is So leaders, hop into the boat at your tables, share with your new friends, tell them you love them, there's nothing they can do about it, and then brag on that person for 20 seconds, and then lean back, wipe that tear, and then bask in the light as someone else brags about their story. You have not been in the boat by yourself for a very, very, very long time. So let's brag about those who have come before us, the giants in our life. Okay? Everybody partner up at your tables, please. We're going to take 3 minutes. 3 minutes. How's this going so far?
Oh, beautiful.
What do you,
Oh,
what do
my-
you, we got halfway through. What do you want to?
Oh, I love it. Just keep going. Do you want these little glass?
That's perfect.
Perfect. Okay, they're open.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Skip. Go 3. One more. One more. One more. There you go.
It's working with a delay. So
That's what's happening. Just one.
That's why I'm taking long. So don't press it, just tell me and we'll do it. Because the delay, it's making it.
How long is the delay?
When you were moving it right now, you were handling the pictures and I couldn't move it when you tell me. So that's what's going on. You're amazing, by the way.
Go the other way.
That you can find in everybody and instill it in
I have an interesting story because I'm from St. Louis too.
Oh, man.
When I was in, well, I work in Seattle now, but I got hit by a car and was in a hospital with a kid that had 100% burns on his body.
When were you in? What year?
It was when you said 32, it was like 10 years before that. But for a minute there, I'm like, that cannot be.
What year?
It would have been 78.
Are you part of the graph? We have graphs in our church.
Yeah, GRAFF.
Yes.
That's.
All right, leaders, friends, family, that's enough love. Back to the conference we go. So here's the ask as we get ready to settle ourselves. I think it's great when you hear someone else's story, but you could also watch the Hallmark Channel and watch a whole lot of stories like that, okay? It's even better when that story becomes a little bit more about us and our work, and then you share a little bit of that at your tables. But when we have the audacity to stand up and to share a little bit of our story with about 1,000 family members, that's when the story gets really good. So I am going to be asking for 2 brave, bold volunteers on both sides of the political divide, okay? To stand and to be heard and to share a little bit of their story by answering the question on the screen. Who's yours? Who's that one person for you? Tell us a little bit about her, okay? Who wants to go first? Oh, right. It usually doesn't happen this quickly, unless we're in first grade, and then it happens even quicker. This woman's hand went up right away, and then I saw a hand pop up in the corner. I'll go back there next. But in life, leaders, with managing risk and assets and IT and leadership and family, it is much easier to sit back and wait for the other. Wait for someone else to do it. But we're called to stand, even if the boat's rocking a little bit. So I want you all to give this woman a big, huge welcome. Give her a big hand, please. Stand. Would you stand? Tell us your name and where you're from.
My name is Kathy.
Talk right into that. Give Kathy a big hand, please. Big hand for Kathy. And Kathy, talk right into that. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Even louder if you don't mind.
I'm really loud most of the time. I'm from Idaho. Yes, you can visit. If you're not nice, we'll send you back. The person who inspires me the most in my life when I look back is my daddy. And my daddy, I lost him when I was 6 years old. But he was the most kind and loving man that I know. Because I was not an easy child. I was hyperactive, they didn't know it. And he would take me on the weekends and play and entertain my brother and I so my mama could sleep, because he was gone during the week, but he took care of our family. And when he got in a wreck, and he was in the hospital in a coma for 8 weeks, and in each hospital that he was in, when he left, that whole floor, the doctors, the nurses, the staff, the custodians, they mourned his loss, because they thought they had just lost their best friend, because they felt his love even though he couldn't speak to them. And when we had his funeral, I'm a little 6-year-old girl. I don't understand why the whole world's being nice to me and giving me anything that I want. But at his viewing, it was supposed to be 2 hours. It's January in Utah. There is snow and there's a storm. And people waited for 2 hours later than it was supposed to, and just to say, I'm so sorry for your loss to my mama. And at his funeral, it was standing room only. And the stories that I hear about him now of how good he was and how much love he gave and how good he was at his job and with anybody that came his way, I want to be like my daddy. So that's why when I tell you I love you, I do. It's not fake. And when I give you a hug, it's because I am a hugger. Let's just get that out of the way. You're going to get one. But it's because I want to be like the man that gave me birth and my name.
Woo. Big. Well done. Well done. Man, I'm glad I don't have to go next. Some poor fellow back here has to go, but before we welcome this gentleman, a couple things. Number one is everybody in this room has a story. 1,000 terrific, tragic, beautiful, redemptive stories being written today. And Kathy just shared part of hers. So that's deeply inspiring. And then secondly, if that's true in this room, it's also true on your teams. Like just to recognize that office, even the folks who seem like they got it all put together, man, there's a possibility that they were at their father's funeral when they were 6, and that they were orphaned, and that they struggled, and that they don't think they know what to do next in their own journey. So just have a little bit of compassion, not only for yourself as you journey through your story, but for those around you. So Kathy, thank you for the reminder. Now, as I make my way back to this brave, bold gentleman, one more big, rousing welcome for this guy, please. Want to catch? Tell us your name and where you're from.
My name's Eric, and I'm from Chicago. And the person who has inspired me the most, his name's Ed Pinniger. And, when I was at the lowest point of my life and did not want to live anymore, he believed in me. He had no reason to believe in me and to nurture me and to love me as his own son. And for that I am extremely grateful, because I'm here today, because I would not have been had he not come into my life.
You get a hug too, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I'm a hugger too. So.
To Eric and Kathy and to each of you, thank you for participating. You probably weren't aware when you took a shower this morning that it would be this emotional before 9 o'clock in the morning. But that's life. That is life, and it's good. It is good. It's not easy, but it is good. How many of you listen to podcasts? Almost half. The cool thing about podcasts is you kind of get to choose what you're listening to. And if it's not working, change and choose what you want to listen to. We have a very cool, I would suggest, life-giving podcast if you ever want to check ours out. It's called Live Inspired with John O'Leary. So anywhere you pull down your podcast, Live Inspired. I interview people that I respect, like Andy Andrews. Have you ever heard of a guy named Andy Andrews? Oh, you have? Andy is my friend. It's actually why I'm here. I love Andy. So we share his story. Brene Brown. You ever heard of Brene Brown? One of you. Okay, so one of you has heard of Brene. It's like she's kind of awesome. And her story's pretty terrific. And so we tell her story. We interviewed a little band recently called Journey. I don't know if you ever heard of the band Journey, but holy cow, man. Not only is their music great and still relevant, their stories are better. Jimmy doesn't know it yet, but I'm definitely eyeing him to bring him on, because when he's ready to roll out that new hit, I want to tell the world the reason behind the words. So you will eventually hear Jimmy. We had a guy, next slide, please. This guy came on recently. Anybody know who that is? Wow, lots. Gary Sinise. If you don't know who Gary Sinise is, next slide. I bet you know this guy. It's like Clark Kent and Superman. They're actually potentially the same human being. So Lieutenant Dan is Gary Sinise. And I brought Gary on to learn about what it's really like in Hollywood. Like, how do you become like really successful in a crazy industry like Hollywood? And then I learned that his story has almost nothing to do with Hollywood. Almost nothing at all. All this guy cares about is making a difference for veterans and first responders. Next picture, please. This is a guy, one guy. When you think that your life is not that important, that relevant, this one guy has raised $30 million every year for the last 11 years for first responders and veterans. One guy, instead of cursing the waves, builds a boat. There's a tie to the work that you do, ladies and guys. Our lives matter. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that by people who know it. So if ever you can be encouraged about the profound beauty and miracle of your life, check out Live Inspired, okay? Just check it out. I promise you, you'll like it. And at the end of every episode, next slide, you will ask, as we get ready to move toward the finish line, one more question. Anybody want to guess what the question might be? What more can I do? What more can I do? Next picture. A little guy named John got burned on a January morning, January 17. The following day, that same little fella finds himself on his back in a hospital bed in St. Louis, Missouri. I can't move my arms or my legs. my lungs were burned, so they not only had me tied down to the bed, but now they had to put a hole in my neck. What's that called? So you got a trach so you can breathe, but you cannot eat or drink or talk. You just lay there, man, barely hanging on, and you got one other challenge. The screen is dark right now on purpose. It's dark because your body doubled in size overnight. So when the sun rose on the 18th of January, your little eyes can't open to see it. You just lay there in darkness for weeks. You're awake, you're alive, you're in there barely. You're mad, you're sad, and occasionally you come back into the light with a little bit of hope and a little bit of faith. You dream, you meditate, you pray, you imagine, you set goals, and you listen. Have you ever noticed how much more you hear when your eyes are shut? I mean, some of you have been listening beautifully all morning long. How'd you like that keynote speaker? Oh, that Sean O'Malley guy from Chicago, he was decent. When your eyes are shut, busy leaders, you hear. And part of the problem around our work with Microsoft or NASA or in government or in our small businesses or in our families is we're so dang busy. Don't you have a chance to listen? How could you? You're fighting fires, people. I beg you from time to time throughout your days to bake in micro periods of time, maybe a minute at a time per hour, just to listen to what's happening around you and within you. Make sure you're doing the next best thing, that you are aware. I had a couple months to listen. And growing up in our community, there's basically one thing we like to listen to. Next picture, please. Baseball. That's our sport. That's our team. There's our stadium. That's the Gateway Arch. And the way we used to watch baseball back in the 80s was not with our eyes. It was not on the internet. It was not on television. The way we used to watch baseball was with a different instrument. Not our eyes, but our ears. We had a bigger-than-life personality. I just heard someone say radio. His name was Jack Buck. Next picture, please. He's on the radio every single night, coast to coast. Nationwide show that tells listeners what is happening at the baseball game. Jack Buck was my hero. I never met him, but I loved him. My mom and dad would tuck me in early. They would leave the door, walk down the hallway, and I would grab my little transistor radio, tuck it underneath my pillow, and listen to the Cardinal game. I loved him. I just never met the guy. He's a celebrity. I'm not. Next picture. I got burned on a Saturday. Sunday afternoon, I'm hanging out like this in darkness, and I am dying. And then my door opens up. I hear footsteps, a chair, a cough, and then one voice. Next picture. And the voice says, very clearly into my darkness, "Kid, wake up. Wake up. You are going to live. You are going to survive. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile." And then he says, "Kid, are you listening?" To which I respond, true story. To which he responds, "Good." Sometimes you got to assume the sale, people. Good. Keep fighting. Keep fighting. The man walks out of my room 9 seconds after he walks in, and he leaves me tied down in darkness on fire for life. I wrote a book 2.5, 3 years ago called On Fire. I didn't call it On Fire because I got burned. That's cheap. I called it On Fire because of what the community does the moment after I get burned all the way through. On fire. Unbelievable. Jack came into my life one time for 9 seconds, changed me. He made his way down a hallway, leaned his head against a glass door, and he just started weeping, which, of course, we all know in roles of leadership, a sign of great weakness. Yes? I mean, if you're crying every day at work, come see me, okay? That may be too much emotion. But on occasion, leaders, when we are doing life with human beings, not just zeros and one, human beings, if that doesn't stir emotions, it's only because, not you're tough, you're not paying attention. Jack wept, not out of weakness, but out of great strength. One of the nurses comes over to him, kneels down, looks up and says, Mr. Buck, are you all right? We can't lose you. You're the only celebrity we got. Okay. And he says, I'm not sure. That little boy won't make it, will he? And the expert looks up at Jack and she says, Mr. Buck, there is absolutely not a chance. When, and it's not an if statement, when this diagnosis comes into your organization, when it comes to your team or your family or your health or your nations, plural, it's one rock, Jimmy. We're in this boat together. When it shows up, there's not a chance. What we do next will matter. I promise you this. What you do next will matter. It will affect everything that happens afterwards. What Jack does, this humble, hardworking, active, successful servant, is he goes home, he cries, he prays, and he reflects on one question. Next picture. And what more can I do for this one burnt up, broken down, dying 9-year-old kid? What more can I do? The following day, there's a little fellow named John O'Leary who's hanging out in a burn center bed dying. Next picture. And then my door opens up. I hear footsteps, a chair, a cough, and then one voice. Next picture. Kid, wake up. I'm back. You are going to live. You are going to survive. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile. See you soon. And then he leaves. And then he comes back the following day, and the following day, and the following day. 9 seconds at a time, changing a little boy's life. Next picture. He eventually guides me home from the hospital, and then 3 months after that homecoming, he picks me up in a Lincoln town car. Next picture. I'd never been in a Lincoln in my entire life. What I remember best about that Lincoln is in the back seat of Jack's Lincoln, there were 6 ashtrays. Not like, dude, that guy needs to clean up after him. No, they were built into the car, man, the good old days. If you are a smoker today, I encourage you to buy yourself a mid-1980s Lincoln, okay? You will ride around in luxury, baby. Ashtrays everywhere. I just remember like, whoa, everywhere. And then I remember going downtown and meeting my heroes, players and coaches that I looked up to as a child. And then I remember going upstairs and broadcasting the ball game. Next picture, please. Jack puts me on live national radio, kind of the way Eric and Kathy were on a moment ago. He puts a big old microphone in front of me and he says, it's John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. The New York Mets are in town. Kid, are you having fun? At a live national radio, the little boy looks back up and says, I'm an introvert. Jimmy and I were talking about this before I went live. Like, I don't clamor the bright lights as an adult. I certainly did not as a child. I don't like my wheelchair. And I don't like my hands, and I don't like my scars. I don't like that I'm in physical pain all the time and that I can't play baseball anymore. I don't like a whole lot of things going on. But when he asked that question that night, I gave him the honest answer. I just didn't have the courage yet to say it aloud. Jack sees a little boy who is struggling. The waves are just about cascading over that little boat that he is in. I'm going to take Jimmy's song and just roll with this all the way to the finish line. But he also sees what's right in that picture. The challenge with leadership and politicians and media is they're so damn focused on what's wrong. And any fool can point it out, man. Flames are very easy to spot and report on. We're called not only to see the flames, but to race toward them, in particular in this room. Not only that, you're called to see where flames might sprout next before they're even a hint of smoke. This is hard work. But we're called to respond and to be proactive in our leadership. Jack sees what's wrong and what's right. When you look at this little guy up there, what jumps off that screen at you besides the cardinal hat? What else do you see? Cover up the mouth. Is he still smiling? Eyes. Jack sees joy and pain. And they play together perfectly. He takes both home, the good and the bad. He cries, he prays, he reflects. They don't come separately. And he asks one other question. Next picture, please. What more can I do? As we go through the story, my ask of you is not to make this about a little boy getting great things from a great man, but make it about what it might mean for you in your businesses and in your roles of leadership as you innovate, as you create, as you connect, as you lead forward at home and at work. Because this question plays in baseball, but it plays as we manage our assets, as we navigate risk, as we cut through the waves that are in front of us each day. Man, what more can I do? One thing to make today better than yesterday. Next picture. The following day, I got a little baseball in the mail. It was signed by a Cardinal great named Ozzie Smith. Below the ball was a note that read, "Kid, if you want a second baseball, all you got to do is send a thank you letter to the man who signed the first." Just one problem. What's the problem, class? You can't write, man. Do you think Jack knew I could not write? Yes or no? So why would he make me do something he knew I could not do? Because he knew you could, and he knew how to be inspiring. Yes and yes. My mom was trying the same thing. What she used to do is come into my room. Can I borrow a pen? Who's got a pen? Right here. Of course, Jimmy, out of the boat first. My mom used to come into my home with a little Marriott pen. Okay, she would try to hand it to me, and my mother would say to me, "Baby, when you learn how to write again, you get to go back to school." Now that may work in your region, your country, your family, your school district. It ain't working in mine, man. I don't want to go to school. I'm home. Good leadership, leaders, hear this please, is about encouraging those we are supposed to sell into or serve to rise to where we are. Come on up. There's risk out there. You need to be aware of this. Rise to where I am. But great leadership, which we are called to, is about coming down. It's about meeting individuals, organizations, parts of our team, our community, directly with where they are, and then building the bridge forward to where we collectively can go next. Jack came down to where I was with baseball. Do you think I wrote the note, yes or no? Yeah. Viktor Frankl wrote, this is a guy who survives the Holocaust, "When you know your why, you can endure anyhow." Man, lead with a why. When you know your why, you can endure anyhow. I wrote one note, I mailed it off, that was the end of that story, until 2 days later I got a second baseball with a second note that read, "Kid, if you want a third baseball." Mama, bring me a pen. Oh, there it is. Because when you know your why, you can endure anyhow. Mailed it off 2 days later, I got another baseball, another note that read, "Kid, if you want a third baseball. Kid, if you want a fourth baseball. Kid, if you want a fifth baseball." Do you all see where this is going? Oh, we were told there'd be no math as part of the motivational session. 1987, next picture, please. One guy, and he's busy, like everybody in this room, sent a little nobody named John O'Leary 60 baseballs. 60. Teaching a little nobody. No such thing. There's just no such thing. It's one boat, one water, one rock. Let's go. Jack taught a little boy that he mattered. He taught him that he could, in fact, write. Changed my world. Next picture. Brought me back to grade school, which was followed, next picture, by 4 years of high school. That was followed, next picture, by 9 years at college. Okay? The first time you applaud me is when you find out I can get drunk in college. I like you. Next picture. You graduate, man, and graduation night, the miracle finally happens, for me at least. Love. I never dated in grade school, middle school, high school, or college. That is a long drought. And yet, literally, no dates. And yet, graduation night, right on time, love shows up. Can I show you her picture, yes or no? Yes. Okay, here she is. Next picture. Is she gorgeous? Who'd you expect? Love. Love sometimes looks like a 19-year-old brunette that you meet in July that same summer you graduate. Her name's Elizabeth Grace. You're going to fly home and see her tonight, but you haven't even met her yet. Other times, love looks like a 77-year-old man with Parkinson's disease and stage 4 lung cancer. When you see this guy, do you see a picture of a guy dying? Yes or no? Please. Shoulders back, man. Finish strong. He shows up with a package and a note. What do you think the first word on the note was? Kid. I'm not sure he ever knew my first name was John. Okay. Kid, this means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too. Enjoy, it's yours. And before I show you what he gave, I ask you all to first ask his favorite question. Next picture, please. Which was, class, yell it out. Now, what more can I do? Sometimes that means outward facing. Get off your rear end and go. Other times, though, in a room like this, it might mean to take care of yourself, your health, your emotions, your family, and then, now healthier, to return to work even more lit up for life. But ask this question nightly and watch what happens. What more can I do? What more can I do? Next picture, please. Kid, this means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too. Enjoy, it's yours. Kid, this is the baseball that I received when I went into the Hall of Fame. It is made of crystal. It is priceless. There is only one like it in the entire world. And then he writes, don't drop it. In the final words Mr. Buck spoke to me that night, or this side of eternity, were these: it's yours. That is a pretty cool way to drop the mic. Like the best that you learned at conference, the best of your work, your talents, your gifts, give it back. It's yours. It's yours. Taught a little boy to believe and dream, to fight, to move, which I think led to the next picture. Known as the greatest sales job of my entire life. Okay. Her name is Elizabeth Grace. Next picture. She gave me him. Next picture. He's named after a great mentor, Jack. Next picture. Jack now has a little brother named Patrick. And when I'm out of town traveling, in particular out to San Diego, my wife hates when I'm gone, so she'll take my little fellas. Next picture. And then she'll dress them. She calls them Sunday smocks, but they wear them all week long, okay? So that's not working for Dad. When I get home, I rip off, next picture please, the little smocks. I get them back in their Cardinal gear. Tell those boys I love them, and there's nothing they can do about it. If you're looking for like a couple takeaways, one of them might be that sentence in front of any conversation you have with a team member, or a partner, or a vendor, or a barista, or a CEO, or a child. I love you, there's nothing you can do about it. And then go. Next picture, please. Jack, Patrick now have a little brother named Henry. And in Missouri, they just keep showing up. Next picture, please. Jack, Patrick, Henry. Next one. And then a little baby girl, her name is Grace. Next picture. And then finally, one more. Here we go. You do find, if you travel too frequently, that two parents who both have dark hair. Can I have two kids with blonde? So I'll be coming back next year. We're going to be talking about forgiveness during that session, okay? It's going to be a good one, man. Let's fill this room. You can bring one friend in with you. When you see that picture up there on the screen, do you see hair color first, yes or no? Do you see skin tone? Political affiliation? Are you looking for their passport? All this crap that divides companies, cultures, neighborhoods, families, gone. You see this Jimmy sang a song about it an hour ago, about A family, about 1,000 today, in a boat together. Different waters, same boat. Now what are we going to do about it? What are we collectively going to do? But more to the point, what are you individually going to do? Next picture, please. What more can I do? At home, in my health, my spiritual journey, my personal finances, my charitable giving, for some kid in a hospital bed, for my organization, for my team, for our industry. What more can I do to make tomorrow better than today? One thing. Little things done over time become anything other than little. What more can I do? Next picture, please. I commit to one thing. I think if you leave every session while you are in San Diego with one takeaway, you win. This was an invaluable use of your time. So I'd like you to grab one takeaway from this session. What's one thing you heard? Maybe it was in Jimmy's song. Maybe it's in part of O'Leary's story. Maybe it's in a feeling you've had, a call you want to make, a letter you want to write, a question you want to ask. One thing. So I'm going to just give you a moment to think about it. If I see you on the way out today, I'll be asking you, hey, what was your takeaway? What was your commitment? Candidly, guys, ladies, I'm not here to fire you up for the next session. We're here to elevate our game and to do life even better afterwards. So I'd like you to grab one takeaway. One takeaway. What have you heard? What could you put into play? What might elevate the way you show up? All right, we're about ready to wrap up. How many of you own, with 4.5 minutes on the clock, a cell phone? Almost 20% of you. So this will really play well to 209 of you. If you happen to have your phone near you or on you or close, or just a pen, you want to write this down. Next picture, please. I'd like you to now, ideally, text me your email address. This is the way we're going to stay in touch beyond San Diego. So my number's on the screen. It's 314-202-5373. And the ask is that you send along your email or the email of someone you don't care for. I'll take either. And then hit send. And I'll take care of the rest. Here's what's going on here. You will leave this session, you'll go to breakouts, you'll go to lunch, back to breakouts, big night coming up, into tomorrow morning, and you will get busy. You'll forget all about the session in all likelihood. But I want you to remember it and be moved by it. So Monday morning next week, I'm coming back into your life to remind you that it's not easy, but it is possible. We call it Monday Morning Motivation with John O'Leary. It goes out to more than 300,000 around the world. So I want you to get that. Once you get that, you can always hit reply. So it's a cool way that we can come together, not just for an hour and 15 minutes in San Diego, but remain together beyond today. If I can ever send a book to a friend in your community that's dealing with cancer or burns or struggles, ask, and I'll do it. If I can ever visit a little kid when I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, or in London, England, if I'm there, I'm in. So put me to work. Let me serve the ladies and gentlemen who serve everybody else. And then the third thing is I'll be inviting you into our community. It's called Studio. Studios are where you create masterpieces. And in our studio, we create the masterpiece that it's your life. It's your life. So next picture, please. So I'll send you back that little text. Hit the link, join me there. It's awesome. I promise you the very first exercise will change your life. Next picture, please. Last one. Those are all my social media links. That's my website. You can learn more about the podcast there. And as you get ready to go back to your work, back to the session, maybe for some of us, we're going to race to the bathroom. I'll race you there. What I wanted to do is to play a little song that is my wife's favorite song. So this one, it's from a little band from the UK. Anybody here from the UK? I think I see a hand way back. Me and you, my friend. Two. It's for the three of us, okay? This is from a little band out of the UK. They're called Coldplay. And my wife, Beth, loves this song. And I hope that you enjoy not only the song, but that you're able to sing beyond the time I'm playing it, the refrain. The words are these. Nobody said it was easy. Life is hard. Weathering storms hard. Dealing with a father who dies when you are only a 6-year-old baby girl, Kathy. That's hard. It's not easy, but it is possible. We are equipped, we are surrounded, you belong, and your best is in front of you. So I'm going to play this song for all the Coldplay fans in the room, but also for all of us who are struggling in a storm right now. Get the ladders out. Woo! Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. That was incredible. John's going to be outside for a meet and greet. Remember, the CXO is in Salon 15, I believe, at 9:45. He'll also have some books out there if you're interested and some of his information. So I hope you enjoyed this morning. Go out there, get inspired, take away a lot of things from our speaker sessions, and enjoy the day, and we'll see you tonight in the exhibit hall.
Well, Jill, thanks for being here.